The road to us. This is how life on Earth was for roughly 40 million years. The first ice age was about 40 million years ago, but they were never really an idea looked into by scientists. Arctic reindeer bones were found in warm southern France, and huge boulders were found on sides of mountains. In Switzerland, carved valleys, striations, strand lines where rocks were dumped were all evidence of huge ice sheets. De Luc, a scientist, said boulders were shot out of caverns by compressed air. Others says they were lifted to mountains by floods. All improbable causes. James Hutton was one first to argue for the idea of massive freezing. Ideas were not noticed or cared for by other scientists, though. A little later, Louis Agassiz believed the idea and sought to prove it. His friend Carl Schimper came up with the term Ice Age and thought there was much evidence that Asia, Europe, and North America was covered in ice sheets. Agassiz began to spread the idea widely. Britain really rejected the idea, and Agassiz was even mocked. Later, though, one of the greatest geologists of all time, Charles Lyell, noticed that there were rocks in Scotland that could not have been carried any way other than ice. So he thought it might have been possible, but he would not support Agassiz publicly. In 1846, Agassiz brought ideas to the U.S. and Harvard gave him a job and built him an entire museum. An expedition in Greenland showed that the whole landmass is covered in an ice sheet, further evidence for his theory. People began believing the theory, but there was one problem. Agassiz found no cause of why they happened. James Kroll, a janitor from Anderson University, suggested that changes in the Earth's orbit caused ice ages. Incomplete computations suggested an ice age around 80,000 years ago, but geological proof suggested there was one much more recent. The theory fell off due to no proper cause. Milankovitch realized that not only the Earth's position in space changed, but also shifts in angle of orientation to the Sun. Obliquity, precession, and eccentricity were the tilt, pitch, and wobble of Earth that may have also affected climate. Milankovitch set out to prove this was the case. Over 20 years, he calculated the angle and duration of solar radiation at every latitude on Earth during every season over 1,000,000 years. He found there was indeed a relationship between ice ages and the Earth wobble. Ice ages finally became an accepted idea. More and more causes were found as well as evidence of many ice ages. The rise of Himalayas affected winds, and the rise of the entire isthmus of Panama would split oceans. This could all affect climate heavily. The first ice age is thought to be roughly 40 million years ago, and there have about 17 ice ages in the last 2.5 million years, although that is hard to calculate. It is expected that there is to be 50 more massive ice ages before a very long thaw. We are just living in a lucky patch of nice weather. Early humans. In 1887, Marie du Bois sought to look in the East Indies for the earliest human bones. Before this, only 5 partial Neanderthal skeletons and other random remains had been found, and they were all on accident, normally from excavations. Some believe they weren't ancient at all, just wounded soldiers, due to different skeletal formations. Du Bois found a Homo erectus skeleton dubbed Java Man. In 1924, Raymond Dart was sent a skull of a child that seemed to be another human species. People later created one called Homo simidae, the man-apes. For 50 years, though, most paleontologists believe it was just the skull of another ape. Doubtfulness from other scientists is always a factor in new discoveries, especially in early humans. Davidson Black also began to look for human bones in China's Dragon Bone Hill. He found what is known as the Peking Man. Ralph von Koenigsweg found the Solo people in Africa. People increasingly discovered different remains until around the 1950s there were over 100 different hominid types. People tried to organize these types into just 2 categories, the Australopithecines and Homo, but there are now 20 different types recognized today. Finding full skeletons of ancient hominids, though, is almost impossible, so stories and finding relationships to ancient humans is very tough. The Chinese grinded up most bones from Dragon Bone Hill into medicines. The rest of the bones Black found were lost in the bombing of Pearl Harbor. Ralph von Koenigsweg gave 10 cents to each native who found a bone and gave it to him, in Africa, of the Solo people, but this enticed the natives to smash larger bones into tiny ones to maximize profits. Discovering new hominids was no easy task. Ian Tattersall, curator of anthropology, said you could fit all the early hominid bones into the back of a pickup truck today. The complete story of evolution is so hard to put together due to lack of evidence that we do have showing up randomly throughout the world in different places, and all the ages being hundreds of thousands of years apart and easily enough time for evolution, and making it hard to put specific humans into categories. Assumptions are often made that are most of the time just guesses. Human origin. This is another debate which can be very confusing at times. The earliest ancestor to humans are thought to have come from Africa. The accepted theory is that a less advanced hominid, Homo habilis and Homo erectus, first migrated out of Africa throughout the world, and later a second wave of the more advanced hominid, Homo sapiens, then replaced the Homo erectus throughout the world. What is confusing is tools that were being used by Homo sapiens were suddenly not being found anymore at basically a certain line in East Asia. But Homo sapiens are found past that. So why didn't they bring the technology they had with them? Another theory is known as the multi-regional theory of human evolution. This is a theory that ancient humans showed up in different regions and evolved into the different people we have today. DNA samples showed many people of different regions had no relation to some of the Homo erectus who lived in those regions. So some scientists question if we are even related to them at all. Life extinction. Countless forms of life go extinct every week. David Rupp calculated that the ground rate of extinction of Earth was one species lost every 4 years, but now the rate is estimated to be about 120,000 times that level. Most extinction we don't even know happens because we don't know the species or don't care to know, and a lot of extinction can be human-aided. The dodo bird went extinct due to humans hunting them, and the last known stuffed dodo was thrown into a fire by a museum. A passerby saved part of the head and a limb, so we barely know what they look like. Once hunters arrived, North America is said to have lost 30 large animals due to extinction. We only have 4 remaining now: rhinos, elephants, hippos, and giraffes in the world. And South America lost 3/4 of its large animals. Europe, 1/3 to half of its large animals, and Australia has lost up to 95% of large animals in its history. In the mid-1990s, Tim Flannery attempted to record as many species extinctions as possible in his catalog, A Gap in Nature, in the last roughly 400 years. This was a very challenging feat, as most species had very poor documentations and sometimes were only mentioned once in the last few centuries. The last large animal we had was the sea cow, related to the walrus. They grew up to 30 feet in length and weighed 10 tons. We know this because in 1741, a Russian sailor, Georg Steller, was shipwrecked on islands of the last living sea cows in good numbers. Still, 27 years later, it was extinct due to people hunting it around the world earlier, and not enough to survive. Raiders could get there to save the species. The cat killed all 12 they could find. The Carolina parakeet was a beautiful bird, but farmers didn't like them. They would always check on their fallen comrades who were killed after gunshots, and farmers without hesitation would look and then kill the sorrowful onlookers by the bulk. The last Carolina parakeet died in 1918 in the Cincinnati Zoo, which they stuffed the bird and then lost it. So now nobody knows what the bird actually looks like other than photographs. The passenger pigeon died in 1914 in the same zoo. People who were interested in many rare animals did go out and look for them in the past, but instead of trying to keep them alive, most would kill them for relics. Our planet in many ways is just like us. Severe ice ages every thousands of years can wipe out almost all life at points. just as humans do to other species. Survival of humans, many could say, is lucky, as the ice ages of the last 1.5 million years have been numerous, but our ancestors adapted and made it through to the nice weather we have now. All life should be considered precious. Humans now have done a little better than in recent past as we realize this late. Hopefully, our species will survive much longer than the ones we hunted or cannot survive in conditions today.